so beautiful this morning. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear two sets of footsteps? Although it's not so gravelly now, it's harder to detect. Today we're leaving aside the normal set of readings for a big feast day of somebody whose work we often read. Amazing work that's marked by a lot of mercy and compassion and a great eye for women, because St. Luke's Gospel is considered like that.
Yes, Luke is the only one who speaks of the woman who was bent down in the synagogue, and Jesus laid his hands on her and she stood up and glorified God. So Luke's stories are unique and not repeated sometimes, and this gives us insight into Jesus' tenderness in healing women who needed help for many, many years, had been burdened. And our world today is a bit burdened, so we ask the Lord to lay his hands on our world so we can all stand up and glorify God.
We're expecting the sun at any moment. Have you been down there where all these flowers are? Down here?
No. It's beautiful.
Luke must have had a lot of heart. The understanding is that he was a doctor. There is a little bit of debate academically if he was Jewish or Gentile, or maybe a combination. Some scholars suggest that he was even writing to the son of the high priest because of all of the liturgical beginning of the gospel, with Zechariah going to the temple, and with Simeon and in the temple, the presentation in the temple, and many other features. It's a theory, and this is the way the scholars work. And so the theories help because they give guidelines of investigation and explanation of things. So in any case, he is left as a gospel of great tenderness. The prodigal son is also from Luke. I don't think the prodigal son is in any other of the synoptics, right? So he has a lot of tenderness. The Good Samaritan, is that in Luke as well?
Yes.
And if he was a doctor, he was familiar with human suffering up close, not at a distance. He came close and he touched the hurting flesh of people.
We also remember how Luke reminds us of the drops of blood that fell to the ground in Gethsemane, Jesus suffering, and only a doctor who knew that such a suffering would come from very intense pressure, anxiety, pain, grief. We understand the depth of Jesus' suffering a little bit better. The sun's coming out.
Oh, there's the sun. There was a lot of helicopter action here around the periphery of the lake for the last half hour. They were flying very low along here. I don't know if they were checking if there was a sunrise stroll in chat this morning. But it's interesting also, Luke is not one of the 12 apostles, and he left us two works, the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles. And actually there's a literary connection between the two. At the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles, Luke says, I've told you all this, now I'm going to tell you the story of the beginning of the church, the life of the first disciples. And so we know about very many important things that happened Pentecost. Many details of Pentecost. Everybody has a different role in the church. Oh, I see that helicopter now up there. It's up there over the Bethsaida area. Well, almost getting there. It's in the Jordan Valley. Everybody has a different role, and there were 72 disciples go out today to they're sent out by Jesus, not just the 12 but the 72. And right now the synod going on in Rome has a lot of people involved. Obviously sometimes leaders need a time of great prayer and discernment and pondering, making very difficult decisions for their communities and all kinds of situations, like now communities in great distress because of violence, and sometimes then there's a need to have a broader listening of everybody. And so in most countries that are democratically formed, there are consultations on a broad basis, elections, proposals for policy. You can hear the helicopters getting closer to us. There's a very nice extract today from Paul's letter, which shows a lot of humanity. Don't forget my jacket. You know, these kind of things. Don't forget the scrolls. Bring my cloak that I left with Carpus in Troas. You know, he's going around so much, and maybe it was very hot weather, he didn't need his cloak, and now it's getting colder. It's very human. He's writing to Timothy, and he's also saying kind of personal things about somebody doing him a lot of hurt. And he says God will reward him. It's interesting that Paul has that culture of the scriptures that long ago said, "Revenge is mine, said the Lord, I will repay." Revenge is mine, said the Lord, I will repay. That's a very important moderating influence on human reactions to evil. Even little siblings have to learn that. People in business partners. Sometimes some businesses come with another approach, and they take all one's business away. It's very hard how to respond. Sometimes it's done very unfairly. Sometimes done with cheating. And Paul describes what this person did to him. Alexander was his name. He did me a great deal of harm. And the next line is, the Lord will repay him according to his deeds. And then Paul is very prudent and he says, be on your guard, for he has strongly resisted our preaching. And then another very human detail, at my first defense, no one appeared on my behalf, but everyone deserted me. There are people who feel and who have this experience. People who are always rejected, people who are abandoned, and they may have a just cause. And how to maintain serenity of heart in the midst of these moments. And that can be even between spouses. It can be in between neighbors, between siblings. It can be very rough between cousins, over inheritance. And there's a beautiful line about Luke at the beginning of this reading. Luke is the only one with me. Paul is at the end of his life writing this letter to Timothy, and he's in prison, and Luke is the only one with me. It's one of the beautiful works of mercy to visit prisoners, to be with them, people who are rejected, who are excluded, in this case for religious persecution, losing religious liberty, to be close to people who are excluded. And even to people in prison who could be criminals, they also need human company. And Luke is the only one with me. Here we have a nice perspective on how the water is going down. And since it's so flat, the slightest drop of water exposes larger pieces of land. Very easily and quickly. We're heading to the rainy season soon. Hopefully we'll have good rain this winter. I think we'll leave it like that for today, folks. I don't know, Céline, do you have any other word of wisdom here for these good people?
Well, I liked the responsorial psalm. Your friends, O Lord, will make known the glorious splendor of your reign. And I think amidst all the trials and troubles we've been hearing about now, especially this morning's conversation here, I think that it's a good thing to know how to let our hearts soar upwards and to look at the glorious splendors of God's kingdom, so that we don't get focused too much on what's negative, because that kind of sucks us in. But when we focus on the glorious splendors of God's kingdom, of God's reign, we will, our hearts will be lifted up, and we'll be more joyful and more strengthened and prepared to face the challenges and to see beyond them. And I hope that will be your experience today, to find the joy in the splendors of God's kingdom.
That's a beautiful word, Céline. With all these flowers here, I was hoping to get them in the background. There's a big bumblebee just coming in there, almost as big as a helicopter. So people, God bless you. Let's keep up the prayer. Yesterday was a day for fasting and prayer. But really every day is, in a world of troubles, prayer is a very great way of blessing people. And I know many of you are praying. Very touched by the request for prayer yesterday or the day before from one of you who was going through cancer treatment and praying for the stem cell donor. And we did that at Mass yesterday evening, especially here in Magdala. Also finished the writing on St. Therese, the confidence in God's mercy. I put in the link, it's still in there for you. I really encourage you to read it. I finished it yesterday and I just can tell you that it's really recommendable. So we do our little our little selfie goodbye. You know, Sally, we should do it in front of the flowers here. Why don't you go back there? Or is it too difficult to get footing? It's a little difficult to get footing there. This is a very rocky terrain here, people.
Do you want to come here?
There we go. Oh, you're good. So there we are. So God bless you all, people. See you later, alligators.
God bless.
Special blessing for all those who were called Luke.